We should be live. Yeah, we got it, but you can go down now.
As usual, I'm just waiting for the visual to be sure.
Yeah, and it takes a few seconds.
Right. Alright, everyone. Welcome back to an Unearthly Podcast. As usual, it's myself, the Man in Black, Mad Matt, and Ronson, and we have finally made it back to the new series, and this is going to be our first, well, not counting our top 10s, this is going to be our first discussion of the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston. So, after the intro, we'll go ahead and discuss his last two-parter.
Alright, so I should go through with the intro on probably just the first one, Bad Wolf.
We can do it together or separate. I tend to view them together, but if you want to separate it, either way works, depending on what you want to talk about.
Okay, well, let's start with Bad Wolf, and we'll see if we want to just do a second review or not. I think of them as separate episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bad Wolf, we start out with a flashback to The Long Game, which was a mid-series episode, which shows the Doctor on Satellite 5, defeating the monsters there at the Jagrafess. And then it cuts to 100 years later. We find the Doctor disoriented on a floor, and he's helped up by somebody, not sure where he is, remembering he was in the TARDIS and he just disappeared. The person says he got selected. The Doctor's not sure for what, and it turns out he's in the house, the Big Brother house. We cut to the credits, and on the way back we have Rose in a similar state of disorientation, getting up and discovering she's waiting to be in a game show. The people there are telling her not to annoy the android. It's shortly thereafter she realizes they mean the android, as in Anne Robinson, and she's on The Weakest Link. We then also cut to Captain Jack, who was with them also, and he seems to be on some form of makeover show. We discover later it is essentially a parody of What Not to Wear. The Doctor, meanwhile, is trying to cope with what's going on, being in the Big Brother house, and discovering that things are not exactly what they seem to be. He knows he was taken from the TARDIS, which shouldn't happen. He's trying to find out exactly what's going on, and then their house has an eviction, and the evictee, instead of just being able to leave the house, is vaporized. So thereafter, Rose discovers the same thing on the first selection on The Weakest Link. Instead of being taken away, the android opens her mouth and vaporizes the contestant. Both are suitably unnerved. Jack, meanwhile, is having the time of his life. The Doctor forces himself to get evicted from the house by damaging property, and much to his surprise, he's not disintegrated. The system shuts down. He's been put there for a reason. So he uses a sonic screwdriver and escapes from the house and discovers he's on Satellite 5. One of the other contestants that come with him comments that it's not called Satellite 5 anymore, it's called the Game Station. And they're cranking out thousands of games like this. All of them lethal. The Doctor's incensed. This is not a game show, this is a charnel house, he says, and goes off to try to find out what's going on and stop it. But of course, first he needs to find Rose. Meanwhile, the weakest link has continued on, and everybody has been removed but Rose and this other jerk who has been voting for everyone else to keep Rose in because she's stupid, and that would increase his chances of winning. The final round goes off, and not surprisingly, the guy wins. Rose is about to be disintegrated when the doctor, who has managed to find Jack, who has destroyed the two what-not-to-wear droids, and has met up with the doctor. Rose sees them, runs to them just as she herself is blasted out of existence. The doctor seems to break. They're hauled away to prison by security to wait for detention to a lunar penal colony. But no, this was the doctor's plan all along. He and Jack break out of prison and make their way up to the command center, where they discover that the controller, a blind person that has been installed there since she was 5 years old, is the one that has brought them here, to head them in the games, to keep them from her masters. After a little bit of futzing around, Jack discovers that no, the people that are disintegrated aren't actually disintegrated. What that is simply another transmat system. And where is it transmatting them? After removing the cloak, the doctor finds out, as he sees several familiar-looking spaceships floating in space. Dalek ships. The Daleks hail them, give the doctor the ultimatum: surrender to us or your companion is exterminated. The doctor says no. The doctor insists he's going to come over there and save her. And I believe that's where the episode ends.
Mm-hmm. So
should I go on to do Parting of the Ways?
I thought he went over there in the I thought he actually physically went there before the episode ended, but I might be wrong.
Nope, he ended on the no.
They ended on the screens getting closed and heading off to the parties.
So he ended on, doesn't that scare you to death, and then the
pretty much,
rolled?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Daleks having a panicked response, and you see all the Daleks on the ship, and that's where they cut to trailer.
Yep.
Do you want me to continue with Parting of the Ways, or?
Sure.
Okay, so Parting of the Ways takes off right where this one left off. The Daleks are in a panic because the doctor's on the way. They ask Rose to calculate what his action's going to be, and she's like, I'm not going to do this for you. They decide to launch missiles at the TARDIS, which is en route. Rose screams, no, that's unarmed, you'll destroy them. The Daleks are like, you have predicted correctly. And of course, no, because the doctor has a trick up his sleeve. Using the surfboard taken from the 2 episodes prior now, Boomtown, the extrapolator, I think, he's managed to rig a shield around the TARDIS. And using that shield, he materializes right in the middle of the Dalek command ship, where, coming out, the Daleks try to exterminate him and fail. Rose, of course, runs up to him, being completely safe. Actually, I think the TARDIS materialized around Rose, didn't it?
Yes, and a Dalek.
Yep, Jack blew away the Dalek.
Yep.
And they come out, face the bad guys, and turn around and meet the Emperor of the Daleks. Apparently the Emperor and his command ship had survived the Time War and drifted smoking and stayed hidden while they rebuilt themselves. They've been there for thousands of years, sifting through the remains of human society, prisoners, derelicts, etc., and basically using the corpses to build new Daleks. The Doctor is slightly horrified, but manages to hide that as he talks to the Daleks and mentions the fact that they must hate themselves for being tainted. The Daleks consider this a blasphemy, and this alerts the Doctor because the Daleks are not usually so religious in tone. But the Emperor then declares himself the god of all Daleks, and he realizes the fundamental fact that they're all insane. He slowly goes back into the ship as he ponders his next action. He returns to the game station, and the Daleks then proceed to start waging an assault on the station. Jack manages to rally a few of the humans into forming a defensive line, while the Doctor begins rigging up a pulse that would destroy the Daleks. Along the way, he discovers a couple of facts. He could do it, but in doing so, he would also kill every human on the planet Earth and on this station, and himself in the process. He's not sure if he can do this, but he does come up with one plan, and that was to send Rose back to the 20th or 21st century. He manages to con her into the TARDIS and sets it going by remote control, and has a final recorded message for her telling her to live a good life. Rose, of course, has a bit of a breakdown, tries to convince the TARDIS to go back, but the door opens and she's back with Mickey and Jackie. The Doctor, meanwhile, has set up this pulse, and the Daleks are slowly working their way up floor by floor to get to the command center. But then they reverse. They go back, and they brutally murder every other human on the station just for being there. Horrified, the resistors look on. This, of course, actually gives the Doctor time to finish working on his pulse, and it's finished by the time the Daleks have gone through all the way to the top, killing everybody the Doctor knows, including the person that left with him coming out of the Big Brother, and killing Jack himself.
Who fired every single last bullet he had at them as they kept proceeding forward at him.
Yeah, they did manage to take out a few Daleks on the way. Meanwhile, back in the 21st century, Rose has decided she can't stand living there anymore, and convinces Mickey and Jackie, much to Mickey's chagrin, to help her find a way to convince the TARDIS to send her back. Their plan essentially involves hooking a chain up to Mickey's Beetle and trying to open the TARDIS console the same way the Sylvine had in Boomtown. Well, that doesn't go so well for the Beetle, but after a bit of talking with her mother, she goes off and comes back with a big yellow truck. A tow truck style, and that somehow manages to break open the TARDIS in time for Rose to look into it and it to look into her, and the TARDIS takes off. Back on the station, the Doctor is surrounded by Daleks, holding the device that would destroy all life in the area, and the Emperor gives him the choice, is he going to be killer or coward? And the Doctor looks and drops the device and says coward every time. And just when they're getting ready to exterminate the Doctor, the TARDIS arrives, and Rose shows up in full God mode. The Daleks try to zap her, and with a raise of her hand, she just blocks the blast. And then with a wave of her hand, she turns Daleks to dust. After telling the Dalek Emperor how small he is, she proceeds to remove him and all the Daleks there from existence, just with a glance. The Doctor and Rose have a discussion that she's done something she shouldn't. She's looked into the heart of the universe, and it's going to kill her. She's asking, why does it burn so much? And the Doctor goes up to her and kisses her, as he does, sucking the energy out and into himself. She collapses on the ground. The Doctor looks at the TARDIS and exhales, blowing the power back into the TARDIS. A few minutes later, Rose wakes up, having no memory of what she's done.
Very
the Doctor's
vague
there.
memories.
Very, very vague, but fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
Rose, the Doctor fills her in, telling him he sang a song and the Daleks ran away. But as he's messing with the console, his hand starts glowing, and he realizes that his time's up. And so he gives Rose a little speech on how he was going to take her to so many places and how he's not going to be the same, and then finally tells her that she was fantastic, and so was he, and then he regenerates into David Tennant. End of episode.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for the comment, Bill. Yes, I thought it was quite neat looking too. I switched over to one for Parting of the Ways, and it looks really nice.
Ah. Could you post that link in the chat, Matt?
Oh, the picture for Parting of the Ways?
Yeah.
Okie doke.
So has anyone here ever watched Big Brother?
I try not to.
I
knew
maybe half
enough
an
of it.
episode.
I knew enough of it to know what they were parodying,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't have told you any of the details.
I had literally never heard of it other than as of, obviously an abstract concept of the name. Beyond that, I had never heard of it before this episode.
Nope, I had heard of it. I knew that there was U.S. and British productions.
I've seen like about half an episode of the U.S. productions and went, yeah, that's something I can live without. Thank you, goodbye.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite shows. But, and really though, when I first saw these episodes back in 2005, I thought they were great episodes. I loved the parody of them using these people. But now, coming back to it, 8 years later, God, has it been 8 years?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
About 8
Wow.
years, yeah.
Anyway, 8 years later, and I'm looking at this again, and I'm realizing how flawed the concept is.
Oh.
I mean, that somebody from, what do you say the year was? 200,000? 200,000?
Yeah.
200? Something like that?
Or it'd be like, it was probably like 200,100 now.
Yeah, something like that.
200,000 in the long game.
Yeah. Would decide to create killer reality TV using 21st century shows.
I mean, I wouldn't even say someone would decide it. At this point, you could honestly, and without really stretching anything, say that it was literally beamed into someone's mind by the Daleks, and humanity had regressed to the point where they did not question the idea.
No, they mention viewing licenses in Bad Wolf.
At this point, how long was the Jagrafest in charge, basically existing for the purpose of misleading humanity?
Mm-hmm.
And then, with no news, they mentioned humanity was regressing mentally ever since Satellite 5 went down.
No, they mentioned that society collapsed, that governments toppled because there was no information.
Right. In the midst of all that, I could see, the Daleks use their controller to send an idea into one influential person, and they say, and nobody questions going along with it because society has reached that point where they would do something like that and not question.
Yes, but why would even the Daleks use early 21st century reality television?
Because this junk sold before and humanity is stupid.
Yeah. Why does anybody use reality television for anything?
Robot duplicates of the hosts.
Because
now,
it's cheaper,
from a production standpoint, I understand why they did it. It was a gimmick because all the people that voiced the robots were the actual hosts from the shows.
I could see the weakest link having another 200,000 seasons. The others, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then why use a robot? Why don't you just decant, find the DNA of Anne Robinson and clone her?
This isn't Futurama.
Dude, this is beyond Futurama.
They're not going to keep her head in a jar so that she can...
These are Daleks creating cloned mutants from human DNA.
Yeah.
The technology's out there.
For the Daleks, yes, not for humans.
It just seemed like, creating robot copies of these people down to their mannerisms was...
Robot copies last longer than clones. Yes. At least if you have that level of technology.
It just seemed to me like the entire thing was a bit far-fetched. Watching it again. I mean, and from entertaining shows, there were so many better and more appropriate game shows than The Weakest Link.
I could see because the weakest. I mean, from my understanding, The Weakest Link is essentially the British equivalent of America's most popular game shows, and I might be way off the mark on that, but that at least is the impression I've gotten. Which to me makes it make sense that it would be included here.
But you would think, I would think that they would have like a robot version of You Bet Your Life, which you would literally bet your life.
I don't know what that is.
It is a very, very old quiz show.
Yes,
that,
it's very old.
that was hosted by Groucho Marx.
A lot of, I mean, you can take this as a positive, negative, or neutral, but a lot of the thing with this season was they wanted to take things that every member of the audience in 2005 Britain would know.
Yes, I know. It's just the fact that when you look back on it now, it seems a bit far-fetched.
Right.
That if you were going to take a chunk out of history, there's far better slices that you could have taken from.
And while, yes, you would argue that something other than Big Brother would be a huge improvement, in Britain, Big Brother was a big thing at the time, so...
Yes, I know. I'm just saying it's just... now looking back on it, because at this point Big Brother, I think, has run its way in Britain.
Yeah, it is reaching the point of irritation in Britain, and has long since run
if I remember right from the last article I read about it, it had basically just started its decline in the season prior to this episode.
Yeah, but I think it's now, it's run its course in Britain. The Weakest Link is only ever shown in reruns. And I'm pretty sure What Not to Wear is off the air as well.
Actually, I believe my mother still watches that.
That would be reruns.
Mm.
And we're talking the UK TV series.
True.
Which, ran till 2007.
So this is definitely one of those episodes where Doctor Who does not successfully predict the future.
Correct.
They predicted the metrics. They predicted the metric system. They did not predict television.
It's what I'm saying, though. It's an episode that doesn't hold up well over time. It dates itself really quickly. It's like those old episodes of original series Star Trek where you had space hippies. And you look back on it 20 years later and you go, what the fuck were they thinking when they made this episode?
Because hippies would never make spaceships.
Starfleet is essentially run by space hippies. It's all about peace and no violence.
No, I mean, these were your traditional 1960s style hippies and the tie-dye and the flowers.
And the long hair.
I'm trying to remember.
And, you look back on it, like I said, you look back on it in 1988, 89, or even nowadays, and you go, what the hell were they thinking? It's like somebody there that was writing the episodes had decided that the hippie movement would last 400 years.
Well,
and of course,
littered with stuff like that, and to be honest, I can hardly nitpick
without changing. And
that's a very common
nitpick Doctor Who for getting something slightly off skew.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's something that, looking back on it now, doesn't hold up well over time. Much like those episodes of Star Trek don't hold up well over time. So yes, when I was watching the episode in 2005, I thought it was awesome. I thought the parody was awesome. Now looking at it 8 years later, I'm not as thrilled with it as I was before.
I'm still fine.
I mean, at the very least, like the makeover show, I either do they don't actually use a name from something current, right?
No, but the two host bots were the hosts of What Not to Wear, and the style of the show was.
I mean, it's still easy enough to imagine that type of show probably comes and goes in fads. It rises, tons of people watch it, people stop watching it, it dies. A whole new version of the show with a different name comes up periodically from time to time. I imagine. I mean, I obviously have never watched a show like that, but I imagine that is the case because that is one of the obsessions with humanity. I believe the Doctor once remarked that nothing changes on Earth quite as often as the fashion. So I could see that type of show just popping up from time to time.
Yeah. The Big Brother thing, though, that's the only one I can really nitpick and say, because I've never cared for that show, ever. I'm not sure why it was such a huge
Yeah, like I said,
praise.
the show was, from what I understand, the show was starting to die when this was being written.
Mind you, it's still being aired. It's just
Is
more
it?
of a...
Oh,
It's more
Big
of a,
Brother?
oh, great, that
Big
show.
Brother?
okay. I kind of gotten the impression that it had died years ago.
No,
Although
it's
it might
still
just,
around
it might
in
just
some
be
form.
it might just be living dead at this point.
It's become a show ulcer. I swear it's like a snake eating itself.
They want to get rid of it, but it somehow manages to make enough money that they can't get rid of it.
Although I am aware that it stopped being actual reality TV and has essentially become a parody of itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is true of a lot of reality TV, to be
Yeah,
honest.
which is why I don't watch reality TV.
Yep.
Yeah.
I watched a couple seasons of Drawn Together, and that also went down the tubes. And I think that's the longest I ever watched
and
a
then it's
reality
like, well,
show.
this is getting samey, but goodbye.
What show?
The first season was okay. After that, Drawn Together.
Drawn Together, yeah.
Well, Drawn Together was a parody of a reality show.
True.
Yeah,
And then
it's
it
essentially
became,
a parody
and then
of
it
Big
kind
Brother.
of flanderized itself and became a
Yeah,
parody of
it very
itself.
much did.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the longest I watched any quote-unquote reality show. And it's as real as any other reality show, honestly.
Yep.
And, there's even... I'm trying to remember there's Cartoon Network versions of reality shows. I'm trying to remember what the heck they're called. Like Total Drama Island or something like that.
Well, yeah, Drawn Together was the first of that.
Yeah, and that was Comedy Central, and that was on their late-night adult...
Oh, you're right, it was Comedy Central. See, those were the only two channels I watched back in those days. I would switch back and forth. I think they were like 58 and 59, and I literally did not change the channel off of, I would not hit any button other than up or down between those two channels.
The closest I get to reality shows these days is I watch Top Gear.
Yep. Of course you gotta watch Top Gear, it's hilarious.
Which is technically a car show.
Yeah, see, I don't watch
Technically.
Technically, because you're basically watching the three hosts basically do really dumb things.
Although, like some of the early episodes
they
when
tried
had-
to convert a car into a boat to sail across the English Channel.
I think the closest I've watched to a reality show, or that I watched to a reality show, is Mythbusters when I see it.
That too.
Now, mind you, I like Top Gear. It's amusing. And it doesn't really hold the reality pretension, you know?
The reality thing is we don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all very clearly obvious, that it's they go into it with a plan.
I mean, I think wasn't there one of the Top Gear episodes where they tried to recreate the journey of the three wise men?
I don't recall, but I do remember one where they did go for a hell of a long ride.
And it's obvious that they're
Is it basically a cross between Pimp My Ride and Mythbusters?
No, they don't really do the Pimp My Ride. The British version of Mythbusters was called Brainiac Science Abuse, which was also a good show, and hosted by one of the same people that host Top Gear. Top Gear used to be a serious car show. They would talk about the new models coming out. They would compare the models to, the current models and how well they stood up to this kind of thing. And that show was canceled in the late 20th century, like 96, 97. And so the guys behind it took a couple years off and came back with a new format, which was more amusing, less serious. And they will do stuff like a challenge. They will have so much money in which to buy and fix up a car and compare with a certain theme, and then compare it to each other, how they hold up. They'll have their in-house professional driver drive them on a racetrack and other things.
And they do occasionally compare new cars to old cars, but that's usually like maybe the first 10 minutes of the show, and then they move on to other things.
Yeah, a lot of it is really the hosts' mentalities are slightly amusing.
Well, here's an interesting parallel to the episode. The extended Top Gear is doing exactly what the Big Brother scenes in this episode did for me, which is causing my attention to wander everywhere else.
Oi!
So that's my review of the first half of this episode.
It's just caused your mind to wander? No, it didn't for me.
Just waiting for the Doctor Who to start.
There were some good lines amongst the reality TV stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Jack's ladies, your viewing figures have just increased.
Yeah, everything John Barrowman did was hilarious. I'll agree with
yes.
And this was back when Captain Jack was still fresh.
Mm-hmm.
This was only the 4th episode he was in.
4th or 5th, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think 4 because you've got the empty child. He was
largely sidelined for the 3rd, but he was there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this was 4th and 5th for him.
So he was still fresh, and his lines were still good.
I watched this for the first time probably about a year and a half ago, and I've probably watched it 4 or 5 times since then.
I probably watched it about 6 times.
And yeah, you're really just sitting here, and it's really kind of their parody and I guess their own internal statement on reality television.
Yes, which, while admittedly is aged, is still not a horrible statement on it.
It's just not as appealing to me as it was 8 years ago. And so, then I get to Parting of the Ways, and Parting of the Ways was the first major appearance of the Daleks. I mean, we had a Dalek in Dalek, but it was just one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dalek was essentially the slasher film equivalent of a Dalek episode. Whereas here, it's a full-out alien invasion type deal.
Yep. So you're essentially seeing the Daleks being their usual badass selves in this. And really, if you look at the Daleks in this, they're freaking horrifying.
And they kill a shit ton of people.
Yeah, they kill a bunch of people. Nobody can hold up against them. I think they managed to vaporize 3 and blind 1 out of a battle fleet of...
they had the android killed 1.
The android killed 3.
3, okay.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I did do a chain of them. Yeah.
And the group doing the hold-off shooting managed to shoot one of them in the eye, which blinded it and took it out of the fight.
Which is not very good.
Which puts them right on par with Grandpa Noble. Although I don't think Noble's not actually his name, but
no, he tried that. They apparently had evolved since then, and they were just able to boil off the paint right off the eyes.
Right? Yeah, that's right. But he did hit it, right? I believe.
In the eye, yeah, with the paint.
Apparently, all 4 of those people there are the equivalent of 1
I do remember a shot of an eye stalk with paint on it.
Yeah, but then it just boiled off, and the Dalek goes, "My vision is not impaired." Which, of course, in this one, the Dalek's going, "My vision is impaired, cannot see."
Again, essentially, all 4 of these people together are up to the equivalent of 1 ace.
Well,
because at least Ace could blind one and then make a run for it.
Ace also had the baseball bat of doom.
Gallifrey and magic, and it was It was created by technology, but it was magic.
Technically magic.
So, are you, for the record, Bill, stating that the Time Lords used the power of friendship to try to defeat the Daleks?
Why not?
I was more thinking
I hear Bill purpling over there. It's great.
I was more thinking what is a high-level magic weapon spell. Then again, Ace was some sort of weapon master anyway. I mean, she could turn a gold coin into the equivalent of choking someone with gold dust.
Well, let's not talk about that.
Well, why not? Because
that's
it's
called
for
bad
skills.
writing. That's called bad writing.
Or just Ace's magic, and you can give her a mundane weapon, and she'll kill anything with it.
Give her a couple of pencils and a paper clip. Let's watch what she can do.
So what you're saying is that the hidden father of Dorothy McShane was actually MacGyver.
Maybe.
All I'm saying is, if you gave Ace that toothbrush from Good Man Goes to War, she probably would have taken down the Silence with it.
Not the hardest job.
Hey, the Doctor couldn't pull it off.
For all the menacing they looked, the Silence were a bunch of pussies.
The Doctor couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, how much did they do besides lurk?
They killed a robot copy of him.
And electrocuted a lady in a bath stall. I mean, that's really all we ever saw the Silence doing.
The Silence. Not that scary.
Well, unless you count the Wedding of River song, but that's one of the episodes I don't like to think about or talk about.
That's one I actually purposely missed and don't wish to ever talk about.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll talk about it. We'll rant and we'll rail and...
Foam with the mouth and flail like Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
But like Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, it's an episode that never happened. So, it's a good place for it. It can sit up there with Dimensions and Time.
Well, as far as Moffat is concerned, all previous episodes were episodes that never happened.
Flail.
Anyway, so, Daleks.
Daleks, being badass.
I think this episode is the first time we see CGI Daleks, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. There might have been some CGI in Dalek, but it was the enhancement effects, not really the full... Right. Here, I mean, somebody went nuts with copy and paste.
For example, the stair scene might have been CGI.
Oh, that one was. That one was.
Of that, yeah, the vast majority of the single Dalek rampaging was an actual Dalek costume.
Mm-hmm.
With a real person in it, because they learned with K9 that robots are not the best actors.
K9,
well,
I thought
that robot technology has gotten better since then.
It has, but they still have trouble with cracks in the floor.
I think they had that problem with Chameleon too, but that's another story.
Well, Chameleon, they pretty much put him in the cupboard and then waited until they needed to kill him.
No, that was not what happened with Chameleon. With Chameleon, they received Chameleon as a donation by somebody, wrote him into the plot, and then the person that actually built the robot died.
That's right.
And nobody knew how to work the robot.
Hi, Nappa. Special guest star Nappa.
It's been a while.
Yeah, K9 was the one that they really had trouble wheeling around and such.
Mm-hmm. They discovered he was not good for certain locations.
Also, he was prone to laryngitis.
That was one of the excuses to take him out of the episode because they were doing filming in terrain that he was not good for.
To which even the Fourth Doctor went, how does a robot get laryngitis?
I'm pretty sure that was Douglas Adams at work there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was that Destiny?
No, I think that was Power of Kroll. I could be wrong, though, but it was in that same era. It was either in the Key to Time series or the series after.
And of course, those are the most recent Fourth Doctor things that I've seen, so they could easily have blurred together in my mind.
But yes.
Luckily, the TARDIS Data Core has an article on laryngitis, and it appeared in Destiny of the Daleks. So yes, that was
Destiny. I didn't think it did.
That was a Douglas Adams and Black Coffee scene.
Destiny, no, was mostly written there. If that was happening in the first of the Doctor, while Romana was generating, then yes, that was Adams.
Yeah, like it was. Actually, it was that was before Romana started regenerating, because she walked in, and then the doctor said something, and he told K9 to shut up because he had just diagnosed him with laryngitis. So
yeah,
first saw the doctor and K9, then
that
Romana.
same intro scene.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So
which was written at the last minute.
Right, so that was Douglas Adams at the last minute.
Yes.
Which is
And it would be his sense of humor to give a robot laryngitis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, apparently he still had the laryngitis in City of Death.
Which is
I remember that, but I'll take its word for it.
Which was the end of the season, or he had a relapse. I don't know. I'd have to take a look to see if there was canine episodes in the middle. But I know they were having a crap load of problems getting the robot to work, because sometimes...
City of Daleks was the exact next serial. Am I wrong about that?
What's that?
You mean
I thought City of Death was the next serial.
You said City of Daleks.
No, I did. I was trying to throw.
I'm not sure about that. I'd actually have to look at an episode listing.
Oh yeah, it's followed directly by City of Death.
Okay, so therefore still plausible.
And I'm pretty sure the thing was that K9 just didn't show up much.
Of course, I cannot think of Destiny of the Daleks these days without thinking of the Hitchhiker's Guide to Daleks.
Stay away. They're terrible.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, it's a great little video, and the voice does a great Peter Jones imitation.
Anytime I drive by rocks, I'm going to think of Destiny of the Daleks, because that was such a classic line that was so delivered perfectly.
Which line?
Oh look, rocks.
Ah.
Closes the report.
I have not watched that one in a while. I think not since Davros came on the Saturday before the episode that Davros had, the season 4 finale.
Right.
My friends and I sat down and we had a Davros marathon.
Destiny was the only Davros episode I had not watched up until it was a week or two ago. So, well, not counting Big Finish, obviously. So I went and turned around and finally watched it, which leaves me only with, I think, Death to the Daleks in terms of Dalek episodes that I have not yet seen. Which I'll try to get to before the next actual Dalek episode airs.
Death to the Daleks. Looks at watch. Yeah, good luck.
That's not a bad episode. I used to have that one on VHS.
Yeah, but it seems to be hinting
I
that
heard
we
it was
can finally kill all the
like
Daleks.
Third Doctor Dalek episode.
Okay, let me give you a question. Is this or is this not the most badass we've seen the Daleks in the new series?
Probably one of the highest peaks for the Daleks in the new series, yes.
We've seen a single Dalek be more badass, but in terms of groups of Daleks, nothing I don't think has come close.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well, there is the Dalek invasion in Stolen Earth, Journey's End.
Yes, but I don't think they were as bad. Like they functioned there, but I don't think they were as badass there.
I don't know. They actually had quite a few worlds under their control and were taking over Earth now.
Right.
So actually the body count technically behind the scenes is a lot
I'm strictly going off of what we see on screen, because...
And on screen we've got German Daleks, dude.
I mean, we had Daleks barking, exterminating German.
Okay,
the Daleks breaking into Torchwood.
Torchwood.
You watched them assassinate the ex-president.
Or
the ex-prime minister, I should say.
Maybe I'm looking forward because, for example, in this episode, we have a Dalek that is face-to-face with the Doctor, and, they're antagonizing one another, whereas in the Stolen Earth, Davros does that while the Daleks sit around and wait. So that's kind of where the bad attitude is kind of tuned down.
I'm not talking about smack talk. I'm actually talking action.
Right.
Yeah,
not words.
And the Daleks are everywhere, and they're carting people away. If they're running away, they're getting killed.
In terms of what I'm, in terms of sheer badassery, both have to be in certain ways a factor.
Because if you're talking a badass smack talk, then I have to go for Doomsday.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. One Dalek was extremely badass there. The group was silent in terms of the arc.
This is This is Pest Control. That was some of the best Dalek smack talk ever.
He was classic, definitely. Whereas once he unleashed the army, they were pretty much silent, and therefore not as gripping, viewing and remembering wise. Whereas when it was just the Cult of Skaro...
No, but I was talking about the Daleks being badass. Daleks can always seem to talk the talk, but this is one of the few times that you actually see them walking the walk.
Right.
So to speak. And where they're actually scary.
Yeah. That's basically, in terms of the total emotional reaction, which episode do the Daleks seem more intimidating in as a group? I would go with this one.
This one, for me, either this one or Journey's End.
But I kind of feel that Journey's End had the same problem that Remembrance did, which is Davros is given his chance to overshine the Daleks. So the Daleks themselves are weakened for it, not the episode in general, but the Daleks themselves don't come off as intimidating.
Whenever Davros shows up, the Daleks turn into basically Davros' lackeys.
Right.
Which I can live with because it allows us to have a voice for Daleks who also has more character to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but in many ways, though, Matt, people will argue that the overuse of Davros cheapened the Daleks.
Which is why we don't overuse him. We've only used him once so far.
Which is why I do not mind the fact that we've only had one Davros episode with the new show.
I wouldn't mind seeing another one, but as long as it's not consistent.
Right. From 1971 until 1989, every time we saw
71 would have been.
I thought Genesis was in his.
Baker's first year.
No, I keep mixing up 81 and 71. I'm thinking he ended in 81, so my brain says he started in 71. So yeah, my mistake. Yeah, but from Baker's first season on, any time that we saw the Daleks, we saw Davros up until 2005. And I'm not really counting their cameo.
Yeah, and I mean, for 90% of Remembrance of the Daleks, you don't think there's Davros in there, or if you do, you think he's leading the renegade Daleks.
Right.
Because the battle computer sounded like Davros.
Mm-hmm. A little bit, yes.
This was a deliberate red herring for you.
Right. Mm-hmm. But Davros does control what is essentially the climax.
Yeah. And I can tell you that once it was revealed that he was Davros, my interest did kind of drop in that episode. It's like, oh, it's Davros again.
Yeah, see, this. If we had Dalek episodes without Davros in the 80s at all, I don't think there would be as much of a stigma in some of his episodes. But since every time we saw the Daleks, it was Davros, it's kind of like watching, it's kind of like being halfway through season 2 of the Third Doctor era, and you're like, oh, let me guess, the Master is going to be in charge.
Yeah, which was kind of what was going on in the Third Doctor series.
Right.
Because the Master was in every freaking episode for seasons.
Not that he was a bad villain, he was just an overused villain.
If they had diluted the Master appearances so that he would have been a bit more effective, just like if they had diluted Davros by putting maybe one more Dalek episode per Doctor without him, he would have had more impact. Which is why they held off until 10 faced 10. Well, this was 10's fourth time, I think, facing Daleks, or third maybe, before they actually brought Davros in.
It was his third. It was his third climax with Daleks because the third season was just the Master. The Daleks had an episode, but it wasn't the big.
Right. Now, the 11th Doctor is probably never going to fight Davros unless they're keeping a really good lid on a secret for the 50th, which seems to be difficult nowadays.
Well, they did announce Daleks for the 50th.
They announced Daleks months ago, but people are acting like it's brand new news. But I'm saying
actually, no, they announced Cybermen.
They said a Dalek fleet and a Cyberman fleet. And Zygons.
So they are still releasing stuff like without us having known about it ahead of time. So they are keeping quite a tight lid on this, to be honest.
But what I mean is, if Davros is in the special, they've done a huge job of keeping it a secret.
They did a huge job of keeping him a secret up till the very end too, for his one appearance thus far in the new series.
Okay, I mean, well,
there was rumors galore that he might be there, but they had nothing for sure until like the very first appearance of him, and that's like, holy shit, it's Davros!
Was it really? Because I mean, with all of the other returning monsters and villains, they followed a sequential path that pretty much made it obvious that Davros would be in the 4. If you look at it, Daleks in the first, Cybermen in the second, Master in the third. The logical choice would be Davros in the 4.
I would have gone with Sontarans, which they did do.
They did feature Sontarans, but they weren't there for the finale, so unless, well, they could have
easily been there for
the
finale.
It might have worked out as a better finale if they had used Sontarans. It would have been kind of like they did with Cybermen in season 2. But I think we're getting way off of what we're actually intending to talk about.
What else?
Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, but my point is that this is the Daleks, and they're truly frightening in this.
Yeah.
You see them attacking the station on swarm. You see their mothership come down and bomb the crap out of planet Earth.
And I gotta say, personally, the first time I ever saw Daleks was the episode Dalek, where, essentially it's a slasher film for kids. Uh-huh. And then the second time I saw Daleks, there were millions of them waiting to invade the Earth. So,
which happens a lot with Daleks.
Yeah, which is, but I mean, is a very...
Yeah, and that was actually deliberate on RTD's part. We got Dalek. This is what one Dalek can do.
Right.
This is parting of the ways. Now we've got 500,000 of them.
Right, and for somebody who had never heard of a Dalek before February of last year, this is a very effective introduction to them.
By the way, Bill, when you first saw the Daleks, what did you think of them?
Crickets chirp.
Yeah, I'm thinking, well, at first, basically focusing on Eccleston's reaction to them and realizing that it must be something horrible. And then from there, I pretty much saw it as Jason Voorhees with a laser gun for an entire episode.
You see, Randy, you gotta realize that Bill is a bigger slasher fan than even I am. And I started watching slasher films when I was like 17.
I'm not that big of a slasher.
Actually, I think that's about the same age I was when I first watched a slasher film.
Well, from there I just went crazy with Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went crazy with Halloween, you went crazy with Friday the 13th.
When I was 16, I spent an entire 4-hour Halloween listening to kids older than myself telling me about slasher villains, and that really hooked me. And then Freddy vs. Jason came out.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. But that's another topic.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, in terms of that, between the two, they were an effective hook.
Mm-hmm.
But no, what I'm just saying is though that this was, they were terrifying, which they have not really been overly terrifying, save for Journey's End since. They got cool moments.
Actually, when was the last time they were terrifying before? They were apparently terrifying for residents of, London or what, when they filmed Remembrance. Where did they film that?
I think that was in London.
Yeah, that was in London. And I remember Remembrance was a huge thing.
I remember them being frightening in Dalek Invasion. They were more or less humorous in The Chase.
Right.
But apparently, especially since there was pyrotechnics and everything going off for that last Dalek episode. Now I just lost the name of it now. Remembrance. For Remembrance, apparently they had such big pyrotechnics going off that literally ambulances and police and fire forces were getting called in, and they actually had to stop in their middle of their tracks because out of the smoke came an army of Daleks marching towards them.
I was gonna say I actually just recently watched the Confidential episode where Sylvester McCoy was recounting that. Like, I've got to imagine being an ambulance driver. You're trying to figure out what's going on in downtown London, and you all of a sudden see monsters from your childhood emerge from the smoke.
Hell of a day.
But I imagine if someone didn't radio them and tell them what was going on, some of them might have just gotten out of the ambulance and started running.
Probably.
The Daleks are coming. The Daleks are coming. Can't sleep, Dalek will eat me. Can't sleep, Dalek will eat me.
The Daleks are really invading London this time. It's not just on TV.
Daleks on parade.
Well, for just menacing presence, I have to go with the Cybermen over the Daleks for that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, but
because the Cybermen have that kind of menacing cyber lumber.
I would argue that RTD Daleks look more menacing than classic era Cybermen. Or at least the Cybermen from before Earthshock. Because once Earthshock hit, they upgraded it and they did look a bit more intimidating. But if you were to compare RTD Daleks,
I would say anything from the Invasion on up.
You take an Invasion Cyberman versus an RTD Dalek, and you still consider the Cybermen to look more intimidating?
If you watch those scenes of from the Invasion where they're coming out of the sewers.
Yeah, that shit will spook anybody.
Yeah, those were freaky as hell. Even the scenes from Tomb of the Cybermen with them coming out of the tombs.
That's stuff that scared other previous Doctors.
A lot of that was the cinematography and the situation. I'm just saying, if you ran into either of them on Main Street, which one would you see as more intimidating? I would probably go with the RTD Daleks over
depending. If you did not know what either one of them was, if you had no idea, I would probably say the Cybermen just because of the way it moves.
Yeah,
a Dalek glides. It glides like it's like a mobile tank.
Mm-hmm. And that is something you can actually grasp onto. But as for the Cybermen, I have to compare that
they have
Cybermen
kind of that
to
Frankenstein lumber.
As I was going to say, they have the Michael Myers swagger, where if you do it just right, it's creepy as fuck.
And that was something I don't think they really had in 2006. They pretty much just marched like robots in 2006, I believe.
Yeah, they had that. They had the stomp, but no, they used to have the cyber lumber.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now because I have seen clips.
Yeah, they bring back the lumber.
That made them a favorite for kids in the playground to imitate too, because that lumber was just so fun to imitate. Whereas, you can't really do a playground imitation of the Dalek other than sticking a finger out near your gut to be, a gun stock and acting like your other hand's a plunger and trying to scoot yourself around.
In my playground, you would have just shouted exterminate and then punched them in the back of the head so they fell down. And that would have been imitating a Dalek.
Okay. What kind of violent playground did you play in, dude?
So, apparently your playground was Cell Block 8?
Exterminate! Oh!
Because for playgrounds in British schools, playing Doctor and Daleks or Doctor and Cybermen was like Cops and Robbers was in America.
God, I wish I lived in Britain.
In my time, it was a lower income schoolyard raised by Power Rangers. So
nobody played Power Rangers and putties?
They weren't allowed because people were getting hurt.
God, I'm glad I didn't have your school.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I mean, we did Power Rangers stuff in my school all the time. We didn't get anybody hurt. The worst we do is maybe jump off a swing or roll down a hill.
Oh, no, I got hurt a couple times on my playground, but that was because of awkward landings.
Or going, look what I can do, and doing something completely stupid.
Well, no, I'd like take a prop jump off of, we had those old, like, tractor tires.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I one time landed with my fingers under my body on the tire, and I wound up jamming all 4 of my fingers and had to go to the nurse's office and get them, wrapped up.
You can't see it right now, but my fists are shaking because my fingers are going, no.
Hurt like hell. And I broke my collarbone a couple of times, but my collarbone was prone to breaking.
Yeah, so I've heard.
And I'd have the occasional bump, bruise, scratch. But no, we weren't deliberately out to try to hurt each other on the playground, at least not until middle school anyway.
Yeah, middle school I remember getting a few hefty blows. New kid in town, which means I'm target number 1.
In middle school, we ripped up the bleachers by the ball field and used them as improvised weapons. Okay, I got suspended for the last week of school because of that incident.
Wow! Okay, they didn't have any bleachers in my school, thank goodness.
Yeah, in middle school, I faced the choice between taking anger management courses in school or having a police report filed. So from there, the violence kind of stopped.
I didn't get that one until high school.
I actually didn't have that problem in high school. I was the kid that sat in the corner and went quiet, didn't talk to anyone because you're all a bunch of loser assholes. Get out of my face.
Middle school, there was one guy who had basically decided he was the school bully and just loved to antagonize me. So I wound up going through high school with an enormous chip on my shoulder.
I went through high school just going, 4 more years and it's over. 4 more years and it's over. 3 more years and it's over. 2 more years and it's over. Oh my god, it's the last year!
Actually, I spent my high school years hiding.
So the Daleks are pretty intimidating in this episode.
Yes.
And I've got to say, this is probably the first time that we really see what can be termed badass Captain Jack. And he's not quite to the point you'd expect him to be later on, but he's definitely, standing his ground. He doesn't give a shit that he's about to get shot up because he's, waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
Well, the Captain Jack subplot for this season was his redemption.
Right.
When he shows up in, Empty Child Doctor Dances, he's a con man. And he's, more or less given up on the concept of heroics.
Right.
And the Doctor, over the course of the 5 episodes he's in, reinstills that faith in heroics in him and allows him to go ahead, even if sometimes he regrets it, as he says in this. Right. Sometimes I wish I hadn't met you, Doctor. I'd still be a coward.
But you can still tell. I forget if it's the beginning of this episode. I think it's actually the previous episode. No, I think it's actually the beginning of the previous episode, where you can tell Jack is pretty much having the time of his life. Just he's already time traveled before, but doing it with the Doctor is clearly had an impact on the way he sees the world. Just in between the end of the Doctor Dances and the beginning of Boomtown.
Yeah.
Although
everyone gives Mickey a hard time.
Well, Mickey gives them a hard time first.
Well, Mickey's everybody's bitch until season 2 when he grows a pair.
Yeah.
And then he turns out to become a badass.
Right. I mean, Mickey's even everybody's bitch in an alternate timeline as what, a 4-year-old?
Huh?
When in Father's Day, where
that's
pretty much
that's normal timeline.
Yeah.
Kind of, because Jackie doesn't remember Rose having been in that church.
She doesn't remember that.
She doesn't remember the conversation where she's told, "This is your daughter."
Well, they also hint, Bill, that he has other traumatic running away moments other than that particular instance.
Well, the time snapping caused a lot of amnesia for that little period where time was looping into itself. The doctor
but from what we understood from the little bit of dialogue about young Mickey is that he seems to be running away from his shadow constantly.
And I don't think he's running away from anything, but they're like he just grabs onto the first thing that comes by
and grabs onto Rose like a baby chick.
Yeah, pretty much the impression there is that he's holding onto Rose because she was the first person who came along, and he's not capable of letting go until Age of Steel.
Mm-hmm. And he's very bitter about that, even in Parting of the Ways, when Rose is just like, I have nothing here. You can see the look on his face is just like he's eaten a sour apple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's just kind of like, oh, god damn it. Really? I'm nothing? Thanks, Rose. Thanks.
But he still manages to pull through and try for her sake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and definitely by Journey's End, he's come to terms with it. He's not happy about
by Journey's End, he's come to terms with it. And by End of Time, he's apparently married Martha. But I'd love to hear the backstory behind that. Actually, I think it was planned.
I really wish that the Martha and Mickey story from Children of Earth managed to get published in some way, either as even if we just saw the script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suspect that, her fiancé originally, heard a bit too much and just couldn't cut it.
Or he was like Donna's fiancé, or Martha's sister's fiancé, or one of the other fiancés that turned out to be evil or whatnot.
I don't think he turned out to be evil, but he might have turned out to be a little more of an ass. Something a little more domestic than those.
And the thing is,
he was out to rule the world, but maybe the fact that he had another girlfriend on the side, something like that.
Maybe. I mean, she was in UNIT at the time. He was probably someone from UNIT, so I can't.
No, he wasn't. He was a veterinarian that she met in the season 3 finale.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was this guy that gave her a ride in, I think, the beginning of that last episode.
Okay.
And so she wound up going back to him. And that was her fiance, or at least supposedly.
Who was that a cameo by?
I don't remember. I'd have to look.
just now there was a meow.
Oh, that was Nappa.
That was more Nappa. Nappa's Nappa.
Yeah.
I was also trying to stay quiet because my girlfriend's trying to take a nap, so I was kind of under the desk where Nappa usually hangs out, so enclosed area, meowing.
One comment on Parting of the Ways. I love the way you drew attention to the model of Mickey's car. My first thought when you were like, his Beetle doesn't cut it, and I'm basically like, apparently British police box trumps German engineering. I could easily read this being Doctor Who. I could easily read that as being intentional.
It was not intentional by me. It's the fact that
no, I mean by Davies or
by Davies. I don't know. It's the Beetle, while in America is the symbol of hippieism, around the rest of the world, it's the symbol of cheap-ass car.
See, I feel like we grew up in very different places because the Beetle, when I grew up, was a symbol of punching someone without any repercussions.
What?
You didn't have the punch buggy, no punchback thing as a major feature of the 90s?
That actually was sort of a thing, but not a huge thing in Wisconsin, at least. I think that mostly started because of Mystery Science Theater, actually.
And I grew up in the 80s, so...
Yeah, but you were alive in the 90s.
Yeah, I was in high school. We were a little more sophisticated than that. I was busy ducking gangs. And trying not to be killed.
At that point, weren't you?
What?
Yeah.
You were in Madison at that point, weren't you?
Oh yeah, and I'd pissed off the local gang because, well, long story. but most of my high school days was in seclusion, trying not to be killed.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Most of my days were spent in seclusion trying to make anything of a decent day, but that's another story.
I could tell you a long story involving gangbangers and police incompetence, but we've tangented enough already.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Doctor Who episode right there. All you have to do is introduce an alien mastermind.
Oh, I really wish the Doctor could have shown up and fixed my problems.
No shit.
He didn't, though. I had to deal with it myself. But we're talking about parting other ways.
What's another thing? I believe Matt was the one who mentioned this was his favorite Ninth Doctor episode. Yeah, I think you've been fairly quiet in terms of the actual episode discussion.
Well, you do even on so many other topics other than the
episode,
so...
Now, which one were you liking, Bad Wolf or Parting of the Ways?
I'm thinking mostly Parting of the Ways because that's where a lot more of the dog play comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Parting of the Ways is my preferred episode, but my favorite Ninth Doctor moment is probably the end of Bad Wolf.
Oh yeah,
it's the first time we get an epic Doctor speech, I think.
One of the first few times, yes.
And that whole bit with the music and everything when the Dalek fleet is revealed is a very nice, holy shit moment. Because at that point we had the Daleks, we didn't think they were coming back.
And then kaboom!
Kaboom, they were there, and we're just like, oh, crap.
And it's more than one this time. Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's...
Things just went through the roof. It just hit the fan, man.
I think I remember watching that with the group, and them going, and no one else knew what kind of ships they were, and I knew only from Apocrypha. I think from... I had the copy of the special edition of Dalek Invasion of Earth, where they re-CGI'd the Dalek ship from that. And it actually looked like that, albeit the one from the mill looked even better than the one in the special edition, but still. It was that first time, I think, that I saw that basic Dalek design, and I'm like, oh, crap.
It was a well-done scene, too, because at first I was just like, flying saucers, and then Jack is like, I know those ships, and I'm just like, have we seen those ships? It just escalates from there.
I think the first time we used a model like that was actually for the movie versions of Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Yeah, I was gonna say this was definitely the first time in a news show that they were showing, but I'm pretty sure some version of Invasion of Earth had featured saucers.
Yes, and that was the movie version.
Yeah, well, no, there was even a saucer on the TV version. They just didn't look like that though, because they had the budget of nothing.
Yeah,
right.
But the movie version they got to perfect it to what they wanted, and this is fairly close.
I'll have to take a look at that Dalek Invasion of Earth movie at some point and see how that compared to
the two Dalek movies, I prefer that one more.
Compared to this CGI re-edit of the actual episode.
Because I think it was still white and gold, but it was still fairly close to what these were in a much older format.
I remember just seeing those and going, oh, hell. And none of my friends got it until they got the alert, we are detected. And they're just like...
Well, I love how 9 is just tired of Daleks.
Wait a minute. No, that's not true.
By this point.
I knew what we were dealing with before then. Because we had that scene where it cuts to Rose is still alive and you see her standing up.
And then a plunger.
Oh, yeah.
No, you didn't see the plunger. I didn't see the plunger. I heard the background. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh, that's right. And I'm like, that's also another Dalek sound.
Crap, that sounds like the interior of a Dalek.
At the very least, you see a Dalek shadow or something in that scene.
Yeah, you do also see a Dalek shadow, and you see a plunger holding her back.
Clearly surrounded by Daleks or something of that nature.
No, the Daleks themselves weren't revealed until the alert we are detected. If there was a vague shadow, maybe.
I don't think it was a shadow. It was a slight distorted reflection.
But I'm going to pull the scene up now because I swear there was some sort of visual Dalek indication there.
Again, there was a very distorted reflection of a Dalek, and then you see the plunger arm.
Because I didn't think it was anything that obvious.
It was there. I remember it. I saw it. It may have been a week ago, but I did see it. I'm like, oh yeah, there's Flincher. Because it's the only thing that could have literally reached out and kind of stopped her. Because she was about ready to try and run away.
Well, yeah, I saw some. I knew she saw something. I just didn't think we saw it.
Very small hints of it, yes, we did see it. Hi again, Nappa. How you doing, Nappa?
He's protesting me giving him a hug.
That's because he's a spoiled rotten cat and he doesn't know a good thing when he's got it. Same with Sam. Oh my god, Christopher Eccleston with a full head of hair. Down to his shoulders.
Oh yeah, he cut it short deliberately for Doctor Who, and I think he's kept it short since.
More often.
Oh,
yes.
that's what it is. Rose looks up, says it can't be, and then you see from a Dalek's point of view.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the major indication that it's a Dalek. You're seeing her from a Dalek POV.
Yeah, well, for mine it was the sound cue.
Right. Like, I mean, in terms of visually.
It's like, oh crap, that's the interior of a Dalek ship sound. I mean, that's always been the
and after that, you don't actually see the Daleks on screen until they do the alert after they're already declared good.
Telling your companion not to wander off, and she does anyway. The curse of the Time Lords!
Well, at that point, Rose had been transmitted across, so yeah.
No, that's the one of the pictures here.
That time it was kind of not her fault.
Yeah, that one, but yeah, in that particular instance.
No, in Girl in the Fireplace, it was definitely her fault.
Yes, her and Mickey.
It's like, he told you to stay here. So, yeah, that was
Yeah,
Rose
and
being
Mickey blinks,
yeah.
turns around, grabs a gun. Yeah, you're getting it, and both run off.
Sigh of the stupidity of humans. But yeah, that scene is good. I really wish the ending was as good, but I've always hit this ending as being a bit Deus Ex.
Well, the abilities of the time vortex are very clearly displayed in the previous episode. That's why I can't really see it as a Deus Ex narrative wise, because it's, you can pretty much clearly see something. It's building up to something in Boomtown.
Yes, but then it came out of nowhere in Boomtown.
It did somewhat come out of nowhere in Boomtown, but they didn't gain omnipotence by it.
That too.
Rose was pretty much damn near omnipotent in that. And she has that power for 5-10 minutes. Does all this horrible, horrible stuff, or wonderful, wonderful stuff, depending on how you look at it. She destroys the Daleks in front of them, destroys the entire Dalek fleet, brings Jack back to life, and then the Doctor sucks it out of her, and she's fine. He has it for all of 6 seconds, blows it into the TARDIS, and he's forced to regenerate.
That is
X does not equal Y here.
True.
It is a bit of a stretch and kind of bullshitty, but yeah. And still, I will argue that yes, the ending is a little bit Deus Ex, but at least they admitted it and went, never doing it again.
Except that Russell kept doing it repeatedly.
Well, not the same way though.
I do like how Eccleston was like, or the Doctor was like, if a Time Lord did that, they would become a god. Then he does exactly that and becomes regenerating instead of a god. Because I'm pretty sure if just absorbing the time vortex from your TARDIS could make you into a god, Morbius or somebody would have done it.
The Master would have done it ages ago.
The Master would have done it several times.
Interesting little bit of fan art.
So there is that, what the hell there. Because, the Master was always looking for power to become more powerful. Even more powerful than this, and he would have done that in a heartbeat. Day one of him having a TARDIS, he would have opened it up and stared into it.
I'm really surprised we never got a Davros Master team up.
That'd be something.
I mean, they would have betrayed each other. Yeah.
Classic or modern.
I mean, they definitely would have betrayed each other, but...
Well, yeah. The thing is, the possible plots to betray each other would have been the interesting part.
There were a couple of episodes in the third series where the Master was working with or in the third Doctor's era where the Master was working with the Daleks.
I think that's Death's Daleks, right?
No. Would be Colony in Space and followed by Planet of the Daleks.
Oh, Colony in Space is a Dalek episode?
Kind of. It's both a Master episode and a Dalek episode, but the Daleks had...
I knew the Master was there.
The Dalek's role is admittedly minor.
The thing is, if it's an episode with Joe in it, the assumption can be that the Master is there.
It's the immediate predecessor to Planet of the Daleks. Or it might be Frontier in Space, I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Either way, it's one of these episodes that led straight into Planet of the Daleks because he was looking to go there to finish the job in Planet. So it's Frontier in Space, aka the Space War. And where it turns out in the back end of it that the Daleks and the Master has engineered the entire Space War. What you laughing at, Matt?
Christopher Eccleston holding a vial of liquid, about to throw it at some aliens off screen. The good old days.
And now he's playing the bad guys.
Yeah, now he's playing a Dark Elf. Can't wait to see that movie, by the way.
Yeah, and this is after he's been playing Destro. So, yeah. The actor that played the Doctor is now playing villains.
I've got
some badass villains.
Since this is the episode with the regeneration, I have to mention I finally introduced myself to Confidential. You guys know that I finally started watching Confidential this week. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that the first episode of Confidential was probably about 2 weeks before they announced who the next Doctor was going to be. So you kind of get the impression he was probably casted because RTD really wanted to keep it a secret until Eccleston announced he was leaving. Mm-hmm. So the first episode of Confidential, before the show even started, is the only one hosted by David Tennant. So he pretty much got the chance to be the Doctor before Eccleston did.
Well, actually, anyway. I am fairly certain that David Tennant was RTD's pick all along. But at the time that they got greenlighted to film the first season, Tennant was tied up in another show called Casanova. Mm-hmm. So Eccleston was there as basically a first season introduction. He's the guy that comes out and goes, and here's Johnny, So I think him regenerating into Tennant was his idea all along. So it wouldn't be surprised if that was supposed to be a subtle clue.
Right.
If his plan was to have Tennant be the confidential announcer throughout the entire first season.
Oh, and then took him off because he was busy filming season 2.
Because Eccleston broke street on his stepping down.
Right.
Or the BBC broke street on it.
Either way.
I
think RTD's original plan was to have the regeneration at the end be a surprise.
Yes, he did not want he did not want anyone to know that Eccleston was leaving until it happened on screen.
And instead, BBC...
Eccleston blew that out of the water.
Yeah, BBC or Eccleston did, yeah. Broke street on that, and then it was just like...
Eccleston said he was leaving. The BBC gave a reason why. Eccleston said, no, that's bullshit. This is the reason why.
No, but sometimes the BBC will pop out a press release ahead of time saying that somebody is stepping down. And I think what might have happened that led to the whole controversy was that the BBC popped a press release that Eccleston said he's stepping down, and Russell T. Davies and Julie Gardner just like, no. But it was too late, and then somebody finally asked him why, and Eccleston said one thing, and the BBC said another, and then there's this whole hullabaloo.
Mm-hmm. From what I understood, just looking, just looking at stuff over the past few days, was Eccleston announced that he was leaving. Then the BBC said that it was because he didn't want to be typecast. Then Eccleston came out again and said, no, that's bullshit. It's because I didn't like the working conditions.
Well, like I said, the BBC will pop out a press notice without the actor. If once the actor has given notice that he's stepping down, sometimes the BBC will then pop out a press notice that says such and such announces he's stepping down, even though the actor hasn't expressly told the public.
Oh, okay, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, he said to BBC in private, yeah, I'll be stepping down after the season, to which BBC went, he's stepping down after the season!
And, yeah, RTD at that point went, crap. What do I do now?
Keep hush-hush about the next Doctor and just try to get this season through and hope that doesn't bomb, because we found out he's not going to be there for long.
And then, of course, we got Tennant. Now, I'll admit, my first view of Tennant at the end of this episode, I'm like, ooh. So that's the new Doctor, huh? Don't like him.
Went stuck a doctor on his ass.
Okay, Patrick.
But no, that was literally my impression of him, was because the fact it looked like his face was made of plastic. And I suspect this was because the makeup person hadn't had time to do a good job makeup testing him.
Yeah. Well, I think that plus he was covered in sweat, supposedly, or something to that effect.
So it made him look plasticky. I had the same thing about Matt Smith when he first showed up. I was like, his face looks like it's made out of puffy rubber.
I should probably explain this. I said whoa a few seconds ago because someone posted something on my Facebook that I thought was major news, but then I realized it was just a different headline about something I had already read, which was Moffat claiming that the 50th anniversary is going to wrap up all of his ongoing bullshit plot threads, which for a second I thought it was an announcement of him stepping down, but it's not the case. It was just
I would wish so.
That could technically still be him saying that he might step down, but he's not admitting it yet.
Not officially saying it.
Yeah, he's unofficially saying it. Like, he might be preparing for it. Please.
It's basically, it's basically, we're supposed to believe that whoever blew up the TARDIS in Season 5 and everything else that's going on is all going to be tied into the 50th special.
Ooh.
So,
so it's going to actually have continuity with more than one season? Holy shit!
Or the Regeneration episode. But whether or not that's actually the case, I mean, we know
that's going to be one ginormous ass grab.
I'm not even laying any credence to it because he's admitted himself that he lies his ass off about what happens in these specials.
Yeah, you know what? Matter of fact, he's left so many loose threads. Even if he does claim it's going to be a finisher for all that, it's not going to happen. It'll just be leaving us with more questions than answers anyways. The Moffat way.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm trying to bury it.
Like I actually had to close an article about that earlier today because some people were posting things about how only people get upset over one or two minor things and that's why they have specifics or whatever, and that's their problem. And I'm like, no, the problem with this era is that it's internally inconsistent, and nothing that comes after the fact can fix that. And I'm like, I was just going to get pissed off and start commenting on every comment there if I stayed on that article.
And, most writers are consistent at least to their own writing.
Right, that's the problem, that Moffat's writing has not been internally consistent, and that is something you can never fix after the fact unless the Doctor turns around and says, oh, by the way, it was all a dream, which would not make it better.
No.
It should make
that's called
army
the
of
Dallas
fans
response.
facepalm.
That's called the Dallas response. Because the biggest It Was All a Dream was from the soap opera Dallas. Where they basically retconned, I think, an entire season or two, saying it was all the dream of one character, including the murder of a couple of characters.
Which is enough to cause fan rage of the beyond levels of reasoning.
I've had GMs pull that kind of stuff on me in tabletop RPGs, and I'm about ready to, kill them.
I would have flipped the table.
Flip a table and strangle a bitch.
No, I'm sorry. All of those carefully laid campaign plans, they were all a dream. All of your papers on the table are now in the...
Well, mind you, that form of the campaign had ended with us blowing up the planet, so...
Well, to some degree I can see that then, yeah. But it still means that you just lost so much experience.
As a manner of keeping the campaign going?
What's that? So it might have been to keep the campaign going. I don't know. But, so we've been at this now for about 2 hours.
Just about, yeah.
I think an hour and a half.
No, closer to 2 now.
We did start late.
We did start a little
late. Oh, yeah, that's right.
I think we started at about 4:30.
3:30.
3:30.
3:30 your time, yes.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and give our final opinions here.
All at once.
Don't look at me. I always look to go last.
You, Randy, you!
I'm going to say good episode, or good, I don't know what you should call it, serial, two-part, or whatever you want to go for. It has its flaws. It has its, hand-wavy things, and it has its moments where you have to really suspend your disbelief. But beyond that, it's, a good story. It does what it needs to. It introduces the new Doctor in a way to, if not get us on his side, at least make us, curious about what's going to go on with it. I already talked about its value for people brand new to the Daleks. So I'm probably going to say 4 out of 5.
Oh, gosh. So I guess it goes to me since Randy's trying to wait to be last.
Of course, I always do.
Oh, gosh. I might add that I did not watch any other Doctor Who previous to this season. After this season, I did start digging into Classic Who. I went back all the way to the first Doctor.
Okay, so you had the same experience with this episode as I did, except
I watched it, within weeks of it coming out.
Yeah, you watched it about 7 years earlier than I did.
Yeah, so that 7 years I was actually watching Classic Who.
Right.
While trying to keep up with Modern Who once in a while. But, yeah, my first Doctor regeneration, I might add. To which I tilted my head and went, what? Afterwards, because I had really liked Christopher up to this point. Chris was doing a great job as the Doctor. I wish he would come back, but I assume that's partially nitpicks between him and BBC.
If he got a good script, he might come back, he said.
Yeah, that too.
But he
talked to Moffat,
and he didn't...
Are we ever going to get a good script anymore? It would have to be a season finale written by somebody completely different.
Neil Gaiman?
Neil Gaiman would be a good bonus, yes. But yeah, this is my first Doctor Regeneration. This is the best Dalek episode I've ever seen to that point. The biggest Dalek episode I've seen up to that point. Oh, just so many firsts, and it's also what hooked me into going back to Classic Who and figuring out everything from there. So, I'd be hard-pressed not to give it a 5, to be honest. It was my first. For a lot of things. And yes, there are some hand-wavy things, and yes, there are some problems with it, but those, to me, are just nitpicks in a sea of awesomeness.
Well, I think I'm a little more critical than the both of you. For one, for something to give a 5, it has to be absolutely perfect in all areas.
Again, to me, it's only nitpicks.
And I do feel that this one has not held up as well over time. I would have told you that 8 years ago this probably would have gotten a solid 4 out of 5 on me. But I think I have to put that down to about a 3.5 now. Just because between the Deus Ex at the end of the second part and the whole reality show part of the first one, I think I have to deduct marks on that.
I think that might be the biggest gap between highest and lowest scores that we've had, with it just being the three of us.
Probably.
One and a half points.
Yeah, normally we see eye to eye on things. This is the first time I think we've looked very differently on something.
I think we've had the highest being a 4 and the lowest being the highest being a 5, the lowest being a 4, or that equivalent. I don't think we've ever had a solid point and a half difference.
Yeah.
With just the three of us. I mean, obviously with other people we've had much greater differences.
And I will admit that I'm seeing this through rose-colored glasses, but they're very happy rose-colored glasses that enjoyed watching it again.
Yeah, I actually, being a critic, I actually took my glasses off to review this one, Matt.
Dude, I'm a reviewer. I still loved it.
Seeing them through... Well, Rose's eyes were kind of blinding during this episode, so if you're seeing it through her glasses, you might not have seen anything.
Well, you come back and it'd be half gone and blurry. I remember a light.
And yeah, comparing this episode to Rose, it was very good. No cheesy, stretchy plastic bits.
Speaking of Rose, going back in this, I found it hilarious that the first line the Doctor utters in the new show is "run." Oh
yeah, it's come back many times after that.
I mean, it's like obviously
one of the things Tennant says to convince Rose he is the Doctor in the intermediate special.
Yeah.
When I met you in that department store full of shop window dummies, the first thing I turned to you and I said, "Run." And we kept running, didn't we? Yeah, that was it came back a few times.
And the first thing he said after introducing himself was "Run for your life" as well.
Mm-hmm. Or it was Matt Smith, yeah.
No, I mean after he says, "Nice to meet you, Rose. I'm the Doctor.
Now run for your life." Yes. Actually, it's kind of a constant reoccurring theme in the new series.
Right. That's what I mean.
Because Matt Smith said it too.
I mean, it's a constant thing. But
I'm the Doctor. Basically, run.
Oh yeah, but that's not introducing himself. When he introduced himself, his companion.
No.
I'm just saying it's hilarious considering how much that phrase and that action have been in the new show. It's very fitting that it became such a part of his introduction in the first episode of the new show.
And then think of the history of running in the show. They've run a lot in that show, even in the classic series.
Mm-hmm. Although frequently the running in the classic series will have somebody fall and twist an ankle.
Oh, that too.
Yeah, because it's also in the classic series the Doctors were a little older. They couldn't run quite as much as some of the newer Doctors.
But they tried.
It's one of the reasons they keep casting young Doctors.
So that they can do more running.
As they can do more running and stunts. And they don't age as much when they come back to do previous Doctor episodes.
In about 3 to 5 years.
You say that, yet the Doctor that's probably aged the least since his time has not yet been invited back to do a special.
Yeah.
Which is Paul McGann, you mean?
Yeah.
Chris and Paul, actually, yeah. Both of them have hardly aged a year.
I heard that Paul filmed something recently.
He filmed something, but nobody's laying claim as to what it was. So it might have just been light at the end, for all we know.
Where?
There's somebody caught Paul in costume, coming out of like BBC. And nobody knows what it's about, or nobody is laying claim to what it is.
And he's being very mum on the subject.
It is possible, and what rumors are circulating is that he actually will play. He's been lying his teeth off. And that McGann will come back to play a bit role in him regenerating into John Kurtz.
I've heard the regeneration as a rumor, but as of now, nobody really knows anything for sure except for the people that aren't saying anything.
I'm wondering if that's the case, we're also going to see Chris and get the hurt into Eccleston.
Just give me Chris and Paul, please. We've been waiting for them to come back for a very long time now.
Well, this would just be kind of intro and outro.
Still,
it would be cool. Although it's still the whole concept of adding another Doctor.
Yeah, I'm still pissed at that.
It still kind of sits wrong with me.
It still screams of rubbish. But so yeah, 3.5, a 4, and a 5. Anybody have a calculator on hand?
That's a 6.2. No, it's not. What the hell did I just? Oh, I just divided by 2. I added 3 numbers and divided up by 2 because I'm an idiot. It's a 4.1 something.
Okay.
4.1, so it's still at least pretty decent and above average.
Well, yeah, there was no way it was not going to be below average. We would have to have somebody. We'd have to have multiple people rated under 3.
This is one that I believe Flynn also likes.
Oddly
if he is here.
He probably likes the satirical view on reality television.
Yeah, that seems to be.
And like I said, I used to like that, but it has kind of, for me, is the foam has gone flat over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen someone come out straight up and say, except for maybe the last 20 minutes, I've never seen someone come up straight up and say they consider this to be a below average episode.
Yeah. And the last 20 minutes, I mean, the regeneration scene itself is fine, other than the fact that David Tennant's face looks like it's made of plastic.
But then again, I see that as he's splashed full of water and sweaty. He just
No, I'm just saying that's my only complaint on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stuff prior to that with all the Daleks disappearing and just the hand-waving ending that I would complain about.
Yeah.
The regeneration scene itself is very emotionally charged.
So with that, I believe that's an episode then.
Yep. And we'll come back next week or whenever with our view on David Tennant, I guess, huh?
Yep, we're going over on David Tennant's next.
So we'll see you guys then.
Good day.
Till next time.